All right. So picture this, like almost 10 years ago now, I'm walking in to Christmas dinner to meet Labrie's family for the very first time, scared, nervous. Labrie and I had not talked about a relationship up to this point, and he asked me to come home for Christmas within a year. And I walk in, and this beautiful human is sitting on the couch. And I was like, wow, they're so great. What did I do to deserve this? And
Oh,
the next thing you know, Labrie and I get married, and now I get to call Amanda Brezzell my cousin. Because welcome to the stage, Amanda, my cousin.
thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Happy to have you as family. It's
I
been
know.
a
It's
beautiful ride.
I was thinking about it, like, right before we got on. All of my cousins are in the Philippines or in New York. So,
Oh,
I don't have any cousins here. So you are my cousin here.
yeah. Heck yeah.
Just so you know, like, you're filling a big role and you're doing a great job. So thank
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here. Like, yeah, I feel like we have a lot of the same. Just like we see the world in a really similar ways, and we're both, quirky creatives. So it's nice to be able to, yeah, have somebody to create with, have somebody to say like, hey, this is like this is kind of an interesting event I want to do, or there's this, there's that, and it's like, yeah, I see it, I'm down, let's do
I see it. I see you. And I feel honored that you say we see the world in the same way because
it.
I have yet to introduce what you do. But the way that you see and move through the world is mind blowing to me. I admire you and Clarissa, your sister, so much for the work that you've done. Let's tell everybody all of the hats that you wear because you are many a hat wearer. So
Okay,
go for it. Do the spiel.
do the spiel. I don't really have one, but I will tell you about myself.
Yeah.
We'll just do there. Okay, so um I do wear a lot of hats. For me, everything comes back to land, it comes back to love, it comes back to art. And so if I can blend those things together into something, I'm happy. Um, so first things first, I own a design firm here in the city of Detroit. It's called Fennigan's Farms, and we focus on redesigning indoor and outdoor spaces to grow food more efficiently and to create hubs, resource hubs for people who might be displaced or just need specific things in community. So it can look very different. It can be like, a big community garden. It could look like a solar charging area. It could also look like an indoor shared housing situation. So it really just depends on what the community wants, what the community needs. But we focus on redesigning using sustainable earth-based materials, and also using like folk technology to do the things that we're doing. So pulling back on the ancestral practices that got us to a sustainable place in our planet,
I don't know.
that have been forgotten. Yeah, what's up?
What do you mean when you say folk technology? I feel like you kind of touched on it, but like
Mhm.
that is the first time I've ever heard that phrase.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure that there's other people that have never heard that either.
for
So,
sure. Yeah. So when I'm talking about folk technology, I'm really referring to traditional ecological knowledge. I'm also referring to this practice across the African diaspora of figuring it out with what you have. Looking at the earth, being in right relationship with the earth, and using the materials that are available to you in order to create what you need. And that could look like um, water conservation. It could look like controlled burns, right, in an area to prevent further wildfires. There's a lot of different ways. It could look like soil health. It could also look like the community centric idea of having a space for community to gather that would not just keep them safe in times of turbulence, but would also provide a third space community gathering area, somewhere where there is no hierarchy, other than the fact that somebody owns the land and we're all showing up. But
don't need
there
to
is no hierarchy where we all need each other. Everybody comes together, different perspectives, same goal. And so, yeah, using all of those practices to create community spaces, and to grow food more efficiently. So I will say, so that's the design component, which then easily transitions into the outdoor nature-based component, which I love so much. So through the design agency, my sister and I, we co-own an urban farm, and that's where we grow we grow dye, we grow flowers, herbs, spices, those kinds of things. All of the food that we grow, though, goes directly on our farm stand and it goes to the community for free. So we don't charge for that. We do charge for our florals that we do event-based things and like intimate gatherings with our flowers. But yeah, ultimately there, we just wanted to break down that barrier to accessing food. So if you can literally drive by, walk by, bike by the farm stand, you can pick up some groceries when we're in season. So
Where's the stand?
the stand,
Yeah.
it's on our farm, which is I'm sorry, yes, 3014 Monterey. So yeah, Fennigan's Farms. If you literally can't miss it. If you're driving down Monterey, there's a lot of vacant land. It's an old neighborhood, so there's lots of elders. Every once in a while you'll see people, outside, but it's also right on the bus route. And so a lot of people walk through where we're at just to get to the bus or to get to other modes of transportation. So it places us in a really perfect spot to catch people before and after they get to the grocery store. So yeah, and then we host workshops out there. I personally use a lot of our flowers to dye textiles using an African batik style printing, which you take wax and you print it on the cloth and then you dye it. And so I dye that with the flowers and then you remove the wax and the textile is ready to be used. So that's like our main thing that we'll like create outside of the flowers. And yeah, and then, this year we'll be hosting a free market for the community and every year I do a new project. So this year we're getting our market started and I'm very excited about that. Yes, and then this transitions into the work that I do with food sovereignty here in the city of Detroit, which is where my heart is going to sit forever, is with these mamas who have raised me in this work. And so one thing to know about Detroit is that we are the urban farming mecca for the country. Some would say for the entire world. I would love to say for the entire world. And so people come to Detroit to learn how to farm. And they are learning how to do this from Black women, Black femmes, Black queer people who started this movement back in the 80s. Even before the 80s, they were farming in Detroit. But, you see it really well documented in the 80s and moving forward. There's also, older men as well who have been in this process. I can't speak to this without mentioning Farmer Willie. Farmer Willie is very important. I will say the organizations that are tailored to food sovereignty here in the city of Detroit are run by Black women and Black femmes. And that is something that is very important to me. Anything they need, what do you need? I'm there. So I work with the Detroit Food Policy Council, the Detroit Black Food Sovereignty Network, the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. And a lot of the work that happens in this circle is around sustainable access to food so that we can create a food sovereign Detroit. Not just a food secure Detroit, a food sovereign Detroit where we have agency in our food system. And so that's being created here. I'm able to work with them as a farmer, as a designer, but I also do policy work. And so when it comes to making sure that the things that we're doing in community can remain and remain legally, then you do need someone who can advocate on a policy level with the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development, with the USDA, and with other organizations that really do determine what kind of funding goes into these projects. Right now, the USDA, a lot of that funding is frozen. And so I personally advocate on a farm to school program, and I also advocate for the farm bill and some other farm to table programs. But the reason I bring up the farm bill is because, within the farm bill is a set of funding that is allotted for underserved farmers, for SNAP, for EBT, those kinds of things. And right now we're seeing a lot of cuts to those things. Right now there's very little money for underserved farmers, which would include urban farmers, small farmers, Black farmers, Indigenous farmers. And so my job is to go to the Capitol, whichever one, and have those conversations and talk about why we need this funding, why we need resources, and what urban farming really does for the economy. Because sometimes you got to talk money. I can see what this does for the spirit of my community, and that's why it's so important to me. but we need funding to do that. And so explaining like what this economic benefit is to those people in charge is the last, I'll say, well, not the last, that's the second to last hat I wear. So yeah, so we, now we're into policy. So I do that. I really have modeled that part of my career after the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer, who had a farm, who had a collective, right, where she was helping support sharecroppers and Black farmers during a time of intense racial segregation. But she was also advocating at a state level and at a national level and getting up and talking to Congress and being like, no, you guys, you actually suck. My people are starving. So no, right. She lived a very, very hard life, but she did a lot of work that was very important. And she used her voice and her mind to show up for community, but maintain this space in community no matter what happened. And so that's why no matter what happens, Fennigan's Farms will always exist. We will always design, we will always have food. If nothing else, we will have food and flowers and a space for people to come and sit down, because we understand how important that is in community to have a place to go, a place that's secure. And then the last hat I wear is art. And so a lot of the flowers that I take from the farm, I do turn into dyes and pigments. And I use that in my art practice. My art practice also encompasses the storytelling component of being a land keeper here in Detroit, being a lover here in Detroit, and just, growing up as a creative and being surrounded by creatives and music and things like that. So yeah, I feel like it all kind of ties into one big thing. But ultimately, I'm showing up to create spaces of joy and love in the community, and making sure to maintain that in my own home by staying dedicated to my art practice when things get pretty rocky out there.
And you have a newer hat as of October of last year, which is
yeah, I actually started DJing. Yeah, if people have not been able to catch on yet, I am a deep Gemini. So I have 50,000 hats. I just have to decide which 6 or 7 I want to wear at a time. But yeah, I love picking up new hobbies. I love being able to explore the things that I really like. I love music. Grew up, I call myself a child of Motown because my parents grew up in that like Motown era and always had Motown playing, Stevie Wonder, everybody. And so, yeah, that love of music, of course, is going to get sparked in Detroit. I mean, the rest of our family, every single person in our family is musical to some extent. And so, yeah, I love music. I just really wanted to be able to melt specific sounds together. I really like an Afrocentric kind of sound, a lot of that those polyrhythms, but I also love house music. Like, I'm super queer. I love house music. I love ballroom. Yeah, so I like, how do we blend those sounds together? And I really wanted to hear what they sound like. So I learned how to DJ, and it's been a really fun experience.
I love it. You see why I said like it's an honor to be seen as someone that sees the world the same way as you, because you are so like rooted in the things that I wish I could know and want to start knowing more about. But at the very end, because at first I was like shitting on myself. I'm like, Amanda's a scientist. Amanda's a farmer. Like, they got this all going on. They're like, blah, 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 blah. But then you said at the end of the day, it all comes down to like joyful expression with community.
You sit right there.
And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. But I do think, and I see you, and I see the way that you move, and I admire it so much because you're doing the play part, and you're doing the advocacy part, and you're doing the community building part. You're doing it all at the same time. And I'm saying it here first on the show, like I am quickly going down that path, and I feel like I need to introduce you to someone. You were talking, and I met this woman. Her name is Dr. Simmons. And she does like global work. She like builds wells all over the world.
That sounds like my kind of person.
Yes. But she's based here in Detroit. And when I met her, she was like getting ready to do a fashion show. And I was like, are you a designer? And she was like, yeah, I'm a designer, but I focus on upcycling and like water advocacy. And I was like, what? And she was like, well, you can't get teenagers excited about water if all you do is talk about poop all day. So we talk about fashion. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
I see you.
Yeah, I would love to meet her. That sounds definitely sounds like my kind of person.
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. Because she's like speaking for the United Nations, and I was like, I need to do this intro.
Yeah.
Like, there's no tomorrow, but heck yeah, I admire the work that you do so much. I'm so glad to be like 7 minutes from you now. So
Right.
now we can like bike up to the farm, do all the things.
Yeah.
But I see the work. I am so like proud of you. I'm so honored to know you and all of the things that you do. So I am curious.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the last 3 to 4 episodes, we've been talking about food and nutrition, and we've been talking about, we had Holly Rachel on, and Holly is like advocating in her home where she's like very meticulous about what she buys. We had Sam Bashara, who is a nutritionist, who's talking about intuitive eating and things like that, and some other lovely folks. But I feel like food keeps coming up. So I am curious from your perspective. Obviously, you have like scientific background and perspective about like farming and eating and things like that. But if you were talking to somebody that doesn't know shit about how to start turning their ship towards self-sufficiency, what would you suggest?
What would I suggest? Well, lucky for this part of the conversation, this is a conversation I have quite a bit.
Okay, cool.
People come to us to learn these kinds of things. I'll say, start with taking inventory of what you eat. What do you like to eat? And not just like what you could survive off of. I think that a lot of people, when they're like trying to start this self-sufficiency thing, are like, I'm going to go live in the woods and I'm going to eat mushrooms and I'm going to kill rabbits and it's going to be great, or it's not going to be great, but like I'll figure it out because And it's like, really doesn't have to be that hard. What do you like to eat? Okay. Where are you getting it? Can you make it? Those kinds of conversations, because you might be like, I actually really don't want to eat locusts and rabbits for the rest of my life. I would love to have breads and other things, right? And so the question is, start with taking an inventory of what you like to eat, what you do eat, what do you buy on a regular basis, where are you getting it from, do you know? And then starting to make the switch to, if I'm buying this thing and it's not local, how can I get it local? And then you transition into that. Now that it's local, now that I'm going to the farmer's market, now that I'm, going to the local bakery, whatever that looks like, the local butcher, right? Like really starting to invest in the local part, because it's not really about self-sufficiency. It's about community sufficiency. We're not going to get through any of this in isolation. And if you are, it's because you already have a bunker. You already know how to process meat. You already know you already know those kinds of things. And a lot of people don't have those skills and do not have the time to learn them. And also we remove a whole group of people that are not capable of being self-sufficient, right? There are people with disabilities who will never be self-sufficient. There are people with, there's lots of different reasons why people might not be, able to be self-sufficient. And so I think the goal is really community sufficiency, because you could create something and have something and be growing something that your neighbor might need, right? But now they've got the lawnmower and like they come and mow your lawn every week or every 2 weeks and you provide them with eggs, right? Like it really just kind of depends on what kinds of things you're doing. But I think we need to start going back to building that like solidarity economy and like supporting one another, because we're just not going to be able to do it alone. Like even with my farm, right? We can be zero waste all we want. We can like be very very closed loop. But like I'm giving out tomatoes, right? Tomatoes aren't going to feed every single person that needs to be fed. Right. It's literally, it's tomatoes. Like it's going to get you somewhere, but it's not going to get you everything. Right. And we don't butcher meat. I don't have the heart for it. I don't. Now, will I roast the animal once it's done being cleaned? Yes. And I'll be out there all day roasting it. But
I want to join you for one of those, by the way, please.
Yes. My shout out to the Joy Project. Gabby, Jasmine. They are two wonderful creatives who have created a living archive here in Detroit that focuses on Afro-Atlantic foodways and storytelling. And every year we do animal roast. And, there's one coming up on Juneteenth we usually do. Then there's another one that I will show up and help with during Fannie Lou Hamer Day, which is in October. But yes, we can go out there and roast that animal all day, but I'm not killing it. So, right. So somebody else has to do it. Already, I need to come outside of my home, outside of my comfort zone to ask somebody to help me with that. So yeah. So I would just say take inventory of what you have. Second, can you make it? If you can't make it, who can help you do that locally? And how can you continue to maintain a relationship with these local spaces that can support that, right? Because like in a minute, maybe not in a minute, but as climate change continues to wreak havoc on this planet, and as man-made disasters, aka economic disasters, and what is happening, in that house, continue to happen, we are going to need community, right? There are we think about parable of the sower, right? And there's these different, like parable of the sower essentially starts out in like California's on fire, right? And everyone is essentially living in these communities that are their neighborhoods. There's these walls that are put up around neighborhoods, and like that's all you have is the people in your neighborhood. And you can venture outside that, but it might be very dangerous. You've got people fighting for water, things like that. And so I think about that, right? Octavia Butler was like, I'm not a psychic. I just look at what's happening and I age it up 20 years and tell you what's going to keep happening if we don't address this. And so we're in that aspect right now. And so if we keep thinking about it like that, like in a minute, we really will just have Detroit. We really will just have these neighborhoods. It really will be East Side, West Side, because we can't get to one another, right? And so how are you going to build your community so that you can support each other through that? And that's honestly part of why we started designing, was to create these hubs across the city for these kinds of things. But yeah, what do you need, and who can help you? And also what are you bringing to the table, right, in that space? And like, what can you offer? And if you really, people are like, well, I don't have anything to offer, I don't have any skills. You do.
You do. Yeah.
You do. And like, we have to get out of that mindset. Like, every single person, no matter what their physical or cognitive ability is useful and has a purpose and has a reason. And in community, we're able to celebrate those things. And so that's where I'm like, yeah, that's where I would start. I wouldn't even think too hard about self-sufficiency. I would look at what you can handle in your home. And the next step would be to pull that back and think like, okay, my neighbors, what can we do together? The people on the next block, what they doing?
Exactly. And it's making me think, like, it's so funny because you were like, if you think you don't have any skills, you do. Like, if you envision the town crier, where there's just a guy screaming the news, if all that you know how to do is like talk to other people and post shit on Facebook, you have a skill. And you can say, hey, you should check out Fennigan's Farms. Have you heard of them? That is a way to utilize the skill that you have, because not everybody can do that. And so, like, at the very minimum, somebody the other day said something like, don't tell anybody about this place because we don't want the classes to be too full. And I was like, oh, well, you're talking to the wrong person, because whatever the opposite of gatekeep is, whatever the opposite of gatekeep is, I'm that. Because what I'm about to do is open my damn mouth and tell everybody about this thing that I found out about.
Right. Yeah.
Skill, and that is useful and that is helpful, especially to people like local farmers and local business owners. The only way that they can keep going is the funding part, right? So there's nobody shopping and there's nobody funding them, and then they don't have any money to produce the products, and then they have to shut down. Like, who are we gatekeeping for?
Yeah, and that's real. And even if we're in a space where we're not even using money, like, right. I don't even have people to exchange with because I don't have, there's no one here. There's no community. Yeah, we have to, that part. We really have to get into that. Like, I matter. I'm an important part of this community, and every single person is an important part of this community. And we just need to get together long enough to figure out what each of us can contribute.
Yes. And when I started like the revamp, and I'm excited because we haven't announced it yet, and we're working on the announcement, but like, you're going to bring a seed swap to the next clothing swap festival.
Yeah.
And when we started the revamp, it was not, the vision for it was not the direction that it's going. It was like, oh, we're just hanging out with our friends in the backyard and I'm being selfish and I want more clothes and I want people, but I don't feel like spending any money. But then I spent the same amount of money on like buying pizza and bagels. So, you know,
might as well.
win some, you lose some. But like the direction it's going, and especially in the January clothing swap, that was like right before all the stuff happened in the house over there.
Yeah.
Like right after that. And so like when I say I'm going further and further in the direction that you are blazing a trail for me, it's like I was like, okay, we're about to have 600 people together in a room.
At
For
least.
4 hours.
At least.
At least. And we clocked in 605 at the last swap, right? 900 registered. And I was like, what do you do with 600 people who are willing to share? And that's where my head is going. And like, we could talk about it now, we could talk about it offline, but like the next one, we're probably going to have close to like 900 at least.
And people register and bring a friend.
Hell yeah.
Right. So it had, I think it was, I mean, I'm thinking it was probably more than the 605.
It probably was.
You know, like I'm going to bring at least 2 friends every time I come.
Exactly. But in my mind, I'm like, we need to expand this. We've learned how to like make that shit pop when it comes to like the clothing swaps. Right. So what else can we share? And the reason I talked to you, I was like, well, you were like, we can share seeds. Okay, great. We can knowledge share, we can seed share, we can clothing share. But now I'm realizing that what we are really doing is teaching people at a very selfish space, like in a very selfish way, how to be better community sharers. Like all we have to do is open the door, right?
I don't even know why. Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't even know. I wouldn't even call it selfish. I wouldn't even call it selfish. I mean, we're exchanging resources. Right. You know, this is the beginning. The beginning is learning how to share resources. And like, yeah, you might be coming for clothes, but you're also bringing clothes, right? Yeah. And like, you're also like in community with people and like doing this very big sustainable act, right? You're donating clothes. But yeah, the seeds will be at the next one. Yes. And like, I already have it in my brain. Like, I already know how it's going to be organized. But like, yeah, I'm excited about that. You just reminded me I definitely need to make a flyer.
We can help you.
I mean, yeah, your flyer is going to go on our page anyway. And I'll definitely make sure to say, like, there's going to be a seed swap. Come on.
Yes. So bring your seeds. But it's interesting that you're saying this because I got influenced on the gram to buy a book. And I thought it was very interesting. Because when this, like, obviously getting afraid is like part of the narrative, but I think also acting in the fear instead of like getting crippled by the fear is also important. So I bought this book and I thought it was really interesting. And I'm just curious about your thoughts on it, which is why I feel so strongly now about the revamp. So it was something like the Navy SEAL's Guide to like bunkering or something like that. And we were just flipping through it as a joke, but we were like looking through it. I just like had it on the coffee table and I had some friends over and like the first page was like, know with your immediate family what you're going to say you have. Because if you don't prepare what you say you're going to have, if your neighbor comes and asks for sugar and you don't feel like sharing it because there's only like one bag of sugar left and you hesitate, then your house is now like subject to potentially get like taken over, right? So the narrative in that book is very much like, do not open up, do not trust your neighbors, do not share, do not disclose what you have, it was like, do not do this, do not do that. It was like all of this, like, rely on you and only you. And if you open up to anybody, you are going to like fail this mission, basically. And I thought it was so interesting. I was like, and it got me thinking. And at first I was like, maybe we shouldn't start talking about the things that we're starting to like stock up on. But then I like go into spaces like the revamp or talk to people like you. And I'm like, no. Like we're supposed to be sharing. No. We're supposed to be like communing and growing and opening up about like, yeah, I got like 4 cans of beans. I don't know what that means for my survival.
It means you got 4 days worth of beans.
Literally. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that because I thought it was very interesting. Yeah. But also I was like, it was telling.
Yeah, I mean, you totally would fail that mission if you were a Navy SEAL. And I'm gonna explain why I said that. So the most recent degree I have is in biohazardous threat agents and emerging infectious diseases. But as that relates to agricultural defense, community resilience, and displacement, like disaster relief, those kinds of things. So, how do you set up an area after there's been a disaster? Whoever did it, it could be war, man-made, whatever, right? How do you do that? How do you talk to refugees? How do you do those things? And one of the major things that comes up is, well, not major. I made it major because I was like, this is huge. Why aren't we talking about this? But one of the things that comes up in that space is something called community resilience. And when you're looking at it, I should also note that this degree I got from Georgetown. And so we were in the nation's capital talking to these people, right? Ex FBI, ex Navy SEAL, right? Like these different people who've done this work, people who've been over in Congo for 10 years, right? Like those kinds of things. And we're learning all of this stuff, and community resilience comes up because for them on the government side, in the government perspective, community resilience is, how do we measure how well a city can get through specific disasters, and like what are the risk mitigation things that we can do? For example, they always bring up California because there's earthquakes, there's fire, there's lots and lots of people. So California is always like a case study, but I use Detroit. Detroit was always my case study, because when we were talking about community resilience, the one thing that kept getting left out is care, right? We were talking about going and building essentially tent cities, right, in other countries, in order to house refugees. That's not appropriate, right? It might be quick, but it's not appropriate. People can't live in tents for the rest of their lives, right? Not sustainably, and not with the very little resources that these communities get. And so I would always bring up, like, what about the care component to it? Like, everybody here just feels like a number, right? And I know you're dealing sometimes with thousands, millions of people, but everybody's just a number. There isn't really any sort of like sorting by needs, right? Sorting by things that people would really want in this space, right? Like, there isn't a system. I mean, there is, but the system is very specific. And so my thesis was all about, like, how do we return care back into these spaces where we are housing lots of people, where we are trying to rebuild their food? What about the culture? We're coming in here bringing American crops to this other country to try to grow things for people, or bringing in food that they don't eat. Why are we bringing in a bunch of corn? These people don't eat corn. And so to be able to have those conversations about like returning culture and care back into community resilience actually brought community back into community resilience, not just trying to make sure that a town was safe from the things that could potentially happen. And so one of my professors, we talked a lot about it, and she was like, yeah, this is the one thing that's missing. Like, we call it community resilience, but it's not community based. It has nothing to do with the culture. It is very much so, how do we move people from point A to point B, and let them live in these spaces, however dilapidated, until it's basically impossible and we have to replace it, right? But we spend thousands and millions, billions of dollars on military equipment that goes to these same places and sits for years because they go untouched. So we've got all this money we're spending on munitions, but people are literally right next to them, starving, in these so-called like cities and tents that we've made up. And so I say all of that to say that when we're thinking about survival skills, right? We're thinking about, hey, what are you gonna do when the world burns down? Your neighbor comes and asks you for some sugar. I'm gonna give the neighbor the sugar, right? Because the neighbor knows me. We talk. I see them. We have coffee on the porch, right? We share groceries. We already have a relationship. So I'm not worried about said neighbor showing up, right, and trying to take over my home or things like that, because we are already in right relationship with one another. And I'm not saying that crazy circumstances don't make people act funny,
Right.
but I think you go a lot further when you have people with you, right? I think about all of these neighborhoods and these pockets in the city of Detroit where you can go over there, everybody knows everybody, right? That's oh yeah, she lives 3 streets over, but she's over here every day, right? Like, those kinds of conversations. And those are the people who are going to come knocking at your door when something happens. And you have to ask yourself, like, these people that I've already built these relationships with, do I want to see them suffer? Right? Do I want to see them get through this with me? And so, yeah, I think it can't be this every man for himself situation, because again, you can't do it alone. What happens if you're in your house, you got your artillery, you got your cup of sugar, you got your 4 cans of beans, right? You don't have any salt. What are you making? Right?
Flavorless beans for 4 days.
You don't have a can opener. How
Right.
are you opening those things? You don't have gas in your house. How are you cooking the beans? Right? Neighbor over here, he's got cinder blocks and wood. Right? So what are we doing? And I also have come to sit with this because my resources are very out in the open, right? It's very clear when you're driving past the farm, there's food growing over here. I mean, granted, sometimes the neighbors think it's all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, no, it's flowers, but not that type of flower. It's flowers and food. Yes. So, like when people drive past, they know there's food growing there. They see the big old shipping container that likely has something in it, right? It's got a big shackless lock on it that you can't cut off. So what's in there, right? You've got the greenhouse, you've got the water. Like, I mean, people come, and I had to put up more signs because they were coming and taking the water out of my rain catchment system to use in their homes. And I had to explain, this is not safe drinking water. Don't clean your house with this water, right? Those kind of things. We had to start filtering water and actually just purchasing filtered water to give out, right? Because even then, like that process was a lot. So getting back to the point of it all, I've had to sit with this because my resources are out in the open. And I know that should the grid really go down or there be some sort of imminent danger around the city of Detroit, the people in my neighborhood are coming to the farm. And I can hesitate, I can answer their question outright, but at the end of the day, I'm sharing those resources. Yeah. Right? And I don't think that people would show up to just like pillage and like steal from me. Right. But it's also like the food was free anyway. You just had to for it to be ripe for to eat it. The food was free anyway. You're not really stealing anything from me. Granted, please don't do that. Anybody listening, don't just go take the food. Please contact one of us or take the food off the farm stand. It's not ripe. If it's not sitting out ready for you, the food is not ready to eat. So don't take it. But as soon as it's ready, it goes out there and there's abundance. So just like let it do its thing. Those kinds of things. So like, yeah, I don't really agree with that, but it totally makes sense from a Navy SEAL perspective to keep all of your stuff inside. That's what we were taught. That's literally the training that I have, is to like make sure your stuff is good. Put your mask on and then help the next person. And I think that that's like, with that mindset, like they just put the mask on and then they go do the thing. They're not sticking around to help the other person put the mask on. Correct. And I think that like for them, they see that as such a big vulnerability to help your fellow man, right? To like help the person next to you. And it's like, it's not making me vulnerable to turn around and help this person.
No, because like, now I got your back too.
We're all trying to get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's also like, you want somebody on your back who you refuse to help. Come on.
Yeah.
Think that you're putting yourself in a worse situation. Yeah. Because now you got people eyeing you and eyeing your resources that you're being stingy about.
Right. Because like what they really got then.
You know, and you can put boundaries around it. Exactly. Right? Like, I can say, hey, well, I know that this community is in crisis, but it's every Sunday we will have a meal. Right. So if you come on Wednesday, probably won't be no meal. I can pick you some food and have you and like, fill up a basket for you, but we're not cooking a big dinner. So I can you can put boundaries around that and say like, these are the days where we do X, Y, and Z. And it just helps to get community in a rhythm. So yeah, that's my perspective on that. I personally think that people, they're very fearful of what being a friend to the people around them can actually be. And I mean that on both a physical level and an emotional, spiritual level, because I also think that people are not equipped, sometimes by choice, with the tools to love community properly and like to be in loving relationship with people. And like when you open up your capacity to actually love people and actually build loving connections, like true loving connections, not just like some play stuff.
Right.
You, you open yourself up to being in just an incredible space that I would wish for everyone to feel that type of love and to feel connections with other people. But yeah, where everybody's in this mode where they want to shut it down, they want to be nonchalant, they want to be on their own, and like, go ahead, but you're not going to get very far.
Right.
Or you might get far, but you're
Yeah.
going to be lonely. And then there's only so far that you're going to get.
And I feel that 100% when I'm doing things. Like everybody, not everybody, the people in my life that are not understanding of that community love piece that I am like so dedicated to, they don't understand why I'm working so hard. And they're like, I don't understand why you working so hard. That is like the exact phrase that I hear, right? I don't understand why you're working so hard. And I'm like, if you would just come through, you would see it, you would feel it's palpable. Like if you walk into a space that feels full of love for the community, for the people, like the feedback that I get from every clothing swap is, I can feel the energy. I can feel the energy.
Yeah, and it's not just the DJs. It's not just the DJs. It's actually lit.
But that is like, you know, when you talk, and it was interesting because you were saying like that community love piece. Like people think about love and they only think about like with one other person. They think about like romantic love, but there's the friendship love. There's acquaintance love. There's coworker love. There's community love. There's neighborly love. There's love from across the street. And you're just passing by and I'm acknowledging that you're a human sharing space with me for this 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, saying good morning to somebody walking down the street or telling the person, you know, it's cold in Detroit. It's cold in the D. We know that. And you know, so like I don't have food in the wintertime, but I have hand warmers, right? And so like if I'm at the farm, people will come up in the winter and they know that this is a place to get resources. And I'm like, I only have hand warmers today, right? But like every person who's coming through there, I'm like, I'm happy to see you. I love you. I'll see you soon. I'm happy to see you. I love you. I'll see you soon. Right. And it's like some of those people I might not see for 3, 4, 5 other months, but I do know, but they know that when they come back, and I know that when they come back, that it'll be a happy reunion, you know, like, hey, you know, and it's just part of that. Like we have to, and even like thinking about romantic love, like some people only have the capacity for one person, but some people don't. Like other people have the capacity to love many people. And I feel like that's also part of it is like when we remove queer people and people who have different people who are open to building different types of structures within their relationships. When we remove them from the conversation, then it also takes us away from being in relationship to lovers, right? Like being in relationship to people who love and who have the capacity to teach you how to love and to be, you know, just like with other people. And that's part of it too. I think that like the queer community does a really, really beautiful job of loving out loud as much as we possibly can. But people don't want to see it. And when you don't want to see that, yeah, you're cutting out a whole lot of people who can really
teach you, make you feel loved, make you grow. I think like that, and I don't know, because I've lived in Texas too, but like really, like when I think about Detroit, I think about the love feeling that is just like ingrained, but there's also this other, like there's another side of the community that's like trust nobody, and they do that and they walk through their life in all circumstances where it's like collab with no one, love no one, friends with no one, like it's me, myself, and I always, right? But there's this other world where it's like love everybody freely and just see what happens. You know, I feel like I was in a space where I was like very closed off, and this is for our friends that are like, I'm closed off, I don't know how to do that. I was in a space where I was very closed off. Every single partner I'd ever been with had cheated on me, abused me, hurt me mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And usually they were sleeping with my friends, right? So like I felt like everybody that was for me was like out to get me because I was finding myself in situations like that. I think it comes also to a self-love and what are you willing to accept and not accept. I learned, and I think I might have said this on the show before, but just between you and me, I learned this trick while I was acting. So I acted a lot, And it was usually to escape my life because I was like, I hate myself. I hate my life. Let me act like somebody else
Okay.
and some joy, right? So I was in a play and I was the leading lady, and the leading man was not only gay, but also had never kissed anybody before. And he was also like freshly 19, never kissed anyone, but was like out. And he was like, "You're going to be my first kiss." And I was like, okay. Like,
right. Like,
you know what I
okay.
mean? And it was very stiff. And we got to the rehearsal where we had to kiss for the first time. And because they were like, we're not going to wait until
The
show
show.
day for you guys to like
Have this awkward kiss.
where you guys are supposed to be married, right? You're supposed to
Yeah.
be married. And I remember like we did first kiss, it was like 2 rocks, right? It was just like, right? It was just dry rocks, you know? So the director said, he was like, no matter what you're into, you find something to love in everybody. You know, whether it's like, and he was definitely he was talking strictly acting, but this like changed the way my brain worked. He was like, you can like the way that they show up on time. You can like the way that they talk to other people. You can like the way that they write, their handwriting looks. You can like the way that they dress themselves. You can like the way their nails look. You can like the way, but there is always something to love about everybody. And in this scenario, you guys have to figure out what you love in each other.
Yeah.
Even if you're not sexually attracted to each other or appealing to each other whatsoever, because like we were not it. He was also like a string bean, and he was like blonde hair, blue eyes, and just like, yeah, it was just not for me. He was looking at me and he was like, you are not for me. And I was like, that's fine. But that changed the way my brain worked, because after that, we were just like, we had like stepped aside and we talked about all the things that we liked about each other.
Okay.
Like let it go. Right. But after that, I'm like, wow, I can find something to love in anybody and everybody. And I get to. And what a pleasure it is to just be able to love every single person that you meet, because you have the opportunity to find something. And the second I started moving in my life that way, oh my gosh, life got so much more fun, like so much more enjoyable, so much more fun, so much more open. And my capacity for love grew. My capacity to give grew. My capacity for love for myself and grace for myself also grew. But like, there's something to love in everybody. And then there's also something to love in the communal group, you know, which is a whole different entity in itself. You know, when your friends is together, like they are not the one friend. It's that group of friends. That's one entity now. And we get to learn that entity of us being together, which is never the same with us one-on-one, right?
Right. It'll be different. It'll be something.
Yes, it'll be something, but it's not the same thing. You're not getting the same version of you. You're not going to be presenting the same version of you. And then when you get in this big collective group of community, it's like, I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah.
No, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I think that's how I would explain it. It becomes a really beautiful thing. But yeah, people don't really have the capacity to do that, you know, or the resources to learn how to have that capacity. Because like we are love, you know, no matter what you believe. I personally, I mean, it matters what you believe. I personally believe that I chose to come to this point in life and come to this point in history, and to be alive during this time in history, to love, like to be a lover. And when I say lover, I'm not talking about like, oh my God, that's my lover. I mean, yes.
Also, yes.
I mean, yes. To a very select, right. Yes. But let's just not say but like with that, loving, like learning how to love, learning how to care, learning how to be considerate, and like mastering a lot of those things so that I can be that for a community during what is inevitably going to be a very rough century. And so I think about that, and I, with that belief, do believe that like we are love. Like we as humans on this planet are love. Like that's what we are. We are the manifestation of love. And I think like I grew up Christian. It might not necessarily be where I align now, but a lot of that still gets carried over. And I know within the Christian faith, right? Like you are a product of God's love. like, and he loved you so much that's who you are. That's why you exist. And many other religions also think about that core component of love, and other spiritual groups. And so, yeah, like, I think a lot of the time people don't, there's that thing that's like, it's a meme now. And I love my community, where it's just like every day we stray further away from God's light, right? Like when it's usually something really silly. But I think about that in framing it differently, in that, like, every day we kind of stray further away from this idea of love, and like this idea, and these actions of love. And there are these pockets where you're seeing it come back, and like you're seeing like loving community develop, and it's very, very beautiful. And then, I mean, there's also people they've never left that, right? They've always been connected to that.
Yes.
But yeah, that, like, I feel like you're seeing a lot of people kind of like move further away from like that loving component. And it's reflected on the way that we treat one another.
Yeah.
100%.
My suggestion for those of us that feel like they don't have capacity for that is to start in small bites. One of the ways that you could do that is talk to the person checking you out at the 7-Eleven. Talk to the person. Like, I know it sounds so silly, but like when we moved to Texas, I felt so lonely. And I would walk to the 7-Eleven and I was like, I just need to, one, like, get outside, and like, two, this is like the closest proximity to coffee from my house, which is the 7-Eleven. So I would walk to the 7-Eleven, and every day, like, I would like try and talk to the ladies at 7-Eleven. And sometimes I like make it a joke. I was like, when I built the revamp, I was like literally trying to make friends. And I would talk to the ladies at 7-Eleven all the time. And at first they were like not into it. They were just like, being hard. They were like, okay, next. And I was like, how are you? Good morning. Good to see you again. And they were like not into it. But I didn't waver from the mission, which was like allow like myself to like see people and be seen by people. And eventually they let me see them. Eventually they let me in. Eventually they opened up. And like I have a very similar situation when I started working at Bamboo. Like my first day I almost quit because I like went home crying because I said hello to everybody. I was like, hi, good morning. Hi, how are you? And people would like look right through me and they're like, where's this? Where's that? Who's, give me coffee, give me this. And I was like, fuck that. First of all, like, not like this. And
That's not.
he was like, you get to control the environment. This is your house. You control the environment and people will adjust, but they might not be ready for it yet. But it was like, it took weeks for people to like slow down long enough to be like, oh, this person is acknowledging my presence. So not just like, hi, how are you? Next, hi, how are you? Not just that customer service shit, which if you're in customer service, like you have that where you can like completely blank, but also be like really kind. My question is to actually participate in the hi, how are you as an individual, right?
Yeah.
Like you participate in the hi, how are you, and see them. People are not used to being seen.
No. A lot of people don't even want to be perceived, and it's in them, right? And then it's like, okay, I'm gonna perceive you, right? And I'm gonna show you how good it can feel when somebody actually cares,
right?
And like that's a special thing by itself, right?
Yes, and it takes practice. You're not going to be able to do it right away, and also it might feel weird. And then you also will find that you're spending a lot of like once you get to like I feel like I'm advanced level of this. Like I'm like over
yes,
here.
you are. If anybody is, it's you. Yes,
I've been doing it for a long time, but also like I've grown my capacity to share like much longer space with people, like an hour and a half. And now like my day and my job are conducive to that, where people just come in and they sit with me. They just come into the office and sit with me.
Yeah.
And like my boss could look at me, and I don't think she does, but she could look at me and be like, wow, Amanda never does anything. She just talks to people all day long. But there's a reason why they're members for forever. Like there's a reason why I'm good at my job, because I'm not making a sale. I'm building a relationship. And I'm like, you don't have to fuck with this. You don't have to mess with Bamboo, but like as a person, I'm enjoying our space together, and I'm gonna tap you either way, because whatever the anti-gatekeeper is, that's me.
Yeah. And it changes too.
To be here and to be present here and to be loved by me, right?
No, seriously. But I think it's also huge because then you get to actually create programming that's tailored to the people who you talk to every day, right? Like you actually can create something that's meaningful and impactful because you know these people, you're talking to them, right? Like I think there was a day that I came over there, and one of the people, he was like, I just need to get some work done, but like my wife is literally about to have a baby any second now, so like I just have to come in here and do this really quick, but like I'm headed out, right? And it's like I know that like that relationship has continued, right? And like I'm sure now that that kid almost got to be at least almost 1 year old now. But like I think about
who you were talking to. That now it's making me think.
I'm trying to, they were like sitting right past your desk. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he was somebody that you were connected to, and like
Yeah.
he opened up and was like so happy to like share this with you and have that conversation and be
He
like,
goes,
yeah, I'm just rushing, but
yeah.
yeah, like everything in my life is about to change. Like he was like really having a moment, and you were just like, yeah, like you're made for this. Like it's gonna be great.
Yeah. But that part, like, it sounds silly to like, if you're on the outside of this, like, loving everybody piece. And I know it's like in this lovey-dovey space, but lovey-dovey like makes change, right? Lovey-dovey, falling in love,
Sure.
the being love and caring for your people,
Mhm.
like moves mountains
It
or
does.
builds mountains or builds buildings. You know what I mean? Like,
Or secures funding, like all of that. Like being able to look at the specific needs of a community and say, I'm gonna go ask for that. I'm gonna go advocate for that.
yeah.
That's real. That it really matters. But we have to be in community with one another. We have to be able to be with one another, which also involves, right? Like people also think, it's all love. It's all love. But also, right? Love also encompasses like conversations about conflict and being transparency and those kinds of things, and like the vulnerability that comes with having to be transparent, or right, I'm annoyed with this person, they get on my nerves, I don't like them, this thing happened, they did this, I did this in response, or I did this, they did this in response. I don't have the capacity to sit down with you, right, and have a conversation about those things, for whatever is going on with me. And now granted, there's some people that really they did something wrong or they harmed you in a very specific way. You do need to leave that alone, right? You do need to maintain your own level of safety.
Right.
There's also times where time apart is what's necessary, and like building your own communities on your own is what's necessary in order to maintain that relationship. So I think that's also part of it, is like, I don't want to be in community, I don't even like all my neighbors. It's like you don't have to like all your neighbors, you just need to know how to talk to them appropriately and respectfully. That's it. You don't have to like her. She gets up at 6:30 every other day in the summer and is mowing her lawn. That is not my friend. As a non-morning person, that is not my friend. Okay. However, she's mowing my lawn and her lawn. And I'm gonna be downstairs at 9, okay, when I'm awake, and bring something to drink, okay, and some groceries, right? Like you have to do that. But yeah, conflict management is a huge part of this. And I think a lot of people also are not equipped to do that emotionally, and we have to build those skills. So like as you're building these loving skills, that also encompasses like how do we move through conflict with one another. And like that's a sticky subject for a lot of people. It's a sticky subject for me because I'm the kind of person that's like, oh no, if you betrayed me, I don't know why I ever have to see you again. Right? I don't know why I have to see you again. I don't know why people keep putting me in spaces with you. I do not need to see you, right? But I can't live my entire life like that, right? Like eventually I'm gonna have to see them and I'm going to have to just, it is what it is, right? I'm gonna see you. And we're either gonna chop it up or just be cordial, right? And like that's okay too. But yeah, that's something I've had to learn. Like I can do all this loving, all this community building, all of that. And I personally, in the last year or so, have had to really think about how conflict sits with me and how my resistance to wanting to see people after they've done something to me is impacting my ability to love and
Yeah.
like is impeding like what I put out into community in terms of like being a lover and being somebody who wants to be in community. So like that's a whole other component, and
It's
like
a whole other component, but it's learnable. It
yeah.
is learnable, and the learning, just like loving, comes from practice and patience with yourself and like doing it ugly, right? So like the other day, I had like a feeling in my gut that I like wasn't. So I was meeting with someone,
Mhm.
and I hadn't responded to some of her messages that were coming from all over, but it wasn't like my ideal form of communication. And she just slipped through the cracks, right? She
Mhm.
slipped through the cracks, but we have a big project coming up together, and this is our first time meeting in like months. And I was like, I just want to start by saying I'm sorry for like not being as available to you. And she was like, what the fuck are you apologizing for? She's like, you don't have to apologize for being busy. But I was like, but also, if you did that to me, I would have been annoyed with you, right? But instead, I did it to you, and I needed to acknowledge it for me. For me, I needed to
Yeah.
acknowledge it because it was like a lump in my throat. But
Mhm.
like old me would have probably just like blocked her and like did a no-show, right? Like that's how avoidant of conflict
I see.
old me is. I would have been like, well, I guess we're gonna never be friends, and just like ghost this person into perpetuity. For what reason? Because I'm afraid to tell the truth or acknowledge that I did something wrong,
Mhm.
or say it out loud. And she's like, first of all, like I don't even understand what you're talking about. Second of all, like you do not have to apologize for being busy. And like third of all, like why are you apologizing? But I was like, I felt bad. I felt it, but I just like kept fucking up. And so I was like, I just want to say it, and I want to just start there and just
Yeah.
eat the frog, get it out of the way, because it was something I was actually feeling. And I was feeling nervous for the meeting, even though I love this person. I'm like, I love this person. I love everything she's doing. I'm 100% about it. But I was like, man, this is gonna be a terrible meeting. And then like I just like let it out, and I was like, oh yeah, I really do like this person. I forgot, you know,
Right. That's why we're doing this project.
because I was in my head about it, right? But
Yeah.
I didn't want to have the conflict resolution part. But with
Mhm.
conflict, we're thinking conflict resolution. Because when you get on the other side of the resolution, like things are great and maybe even better because you're
Mhm.
acknowledging, you're working through it, you're talking through the feelings, and then you're moving on. But if you don't do that part, you'll never move on. Right?
Yeah. Or even conflict management.
Right.
Sometimes you're gonna be in the shit with somebody for a minute. It's going
Mhm.
to be a minute. You're not gonna get over it because it hurt,
Right.
right? And it's okay to acknowledge the hurt and to say, you will never do that to me again. It's not appropriate, right? And so, yeah, holding that and like being able to do that with yourself, but also know like, okay, maybe it might be time to
Time to let it go.
this,
But
right?
you do
But
that with love and
you know,
respect, you know?
it's huge. Yeah, I mean, it does come down to how much you do really just like respect the person. And sometimes the management of the conflict and the management of the conflict leads to that resolution of we're not friends.
And that's okay.
If we were in a war and I was trying, and I want to see you alive, but you're not welcome in my space, and I don't
Mhm.
want to see you. And that is okay. That is okay to get to that point.
Yeah.
But like as much as we can, I would encourage myself at least
Yeah.
to, just dig deeper into that. Why do you feel like that? And
Where's that
figure
coming from?
out. Yeah, yeah.
Why
Because
does it keep showing up?
sometimes it's coming from a good place of like, no, you need to keep yourself safe. Other times it's like, no, you just don't like the way you just don't like the way that this person acts. And so you're just not. And
Yeah.
like that's just a selfish thing that you can get over.
But yeah, and it's allowed. Like you're allowed to, and when we talk about like community love and loving everyone, like it is not required that everybody likes you and you like everybody, but like the option to try is what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And then it is loving to someone. It is love to let somebody go. That's not right for
It
you.
is. It
It is
is.
love
I
to
think
do-
I think I wholeheartedly agree with that
yeah,
because I think sometimes we keep people around because we're like,
I have to.
I have to, yeah, I have to, or we've invested so much into a friendship and now I need to be here. I mean, I've had this friend now, since we were 4 years old. So we're talking more than 2 decades,
Yes.
right? And a few years ago we had a falling out. Like we disagreed on some really major things, and I
Mhm.
took a step back. And maybe a month ago, she texted me and was just like, like, I know that things didn't end the way that we would have imagined, and low-key we thought we'd be friends for the rest of our lives. And I really miss you, and I've been wishing you really well, and like if you have time, like I would love to like catch up and just like see where we're both at. And it took me a little bit because I was a little shocked to even see the message pop up on my screen. But yeah, we recently talked, and it was like we're literally 16 again, having these conversations and like being able to really just like love one another and grow with one another. And it felt really cool. And I mean, we talked over the phone. I was like, I don't know if I want to meet you for dinner.
Yeah.
I don't really know you yet. I don't really know you anymore.
You need to know each other again in the new version.
Right.
People
And
change.
I think it's been a really beautiful thing. Yeah, I'm happy that like I responded to that message and like we're in a space where we can like be like, yeah, let's go to lunch or something and let's talk and like reform this multi-decade long friendship, right?
Yeah.
Like let's do that. And yeah, that's an example. I think that's not, like, for me, the only example I actually have of resolving a conflict that was that deep, right? Like I've resolved little ones, but like this one was really deep for both of us. And so to resolve a conflict that was that deep and to come to this shared point of understanding was really beautiful. And I'm like really happy that like I allowed my heart to do that. So yeah, I think it can be really beautiful. I also have another friend who I'm like, girl, we're not friends, but I wish you well. I wish you well.
Yes.
I will always wish you well from over there. Yeah, and it just is. But like that's how relationships evolve, and you have to be open to those kinds
Right. And you loved when it was the right timing, and then you got to let it go when it's not. And like there are people where the resolution is growth for both of you. Like I remember my sister and I, like we're very different, but we feel like we got each other. Like that is like like when I think of my family, I think it is already a very small unit, but also like when I think of my family, I'm like my sister is like my person outside of my husband. Like that's my family unit, right? And we're definitely like not doing well, and we were like letting it compound and compound, and we went to a bachelorette party weekend and we bunked together, and we had bunked together since we were like we shared a room our whole lives, like up until like I moved out, which was like in my 20s. Like we slept in a bunk bed, right? Like that was what we did. And that was very healing for us because we talked till like 6 a.m. and we talked through everything that we were like, when this was going on, this is what was happening in my life. And I had no idea that she was going through some of the things that she was going through. But it came to a head where we're like, either we're going to like stay connected or we're going to disconnect. And we were both down for either way. But we needed to have that, like, we needed to talk it through. And we needed the perfect scenario. And like, what a better environment than like bunk beds, which is how we grew up. Like
literally, yeah. What a moment. That's like I'm thinking about that like cinematically.
It was huge. We were like up north, and we were like in a bunk bed, and we were all freaked out because the girls were weird. And we're like, are we gonna die this weekend? And Rachel's like, I think it might just be the flowers. And I was like, fair, but also
yeah. Yeah, no, that seems like something that's a very like this is us kind of like storytelling.
We needed it. And I feel like our relationship is better. And now we have common language that we came up with each other. When we come across conflict, we're able to say, and this is going to be so stupid, but I think you're going to love it because you have a sister. So like my sister will get frantic and anxious, and she'll call me and dump, right? And she doesn't really care when or what's going on with me. And I was like, it's okay. Sometimes you just got to let it out. It's like a fart, right? So now she'll be like, can I call and fart? Like, can I call you and like let a fart out?
Yeah.
So stupid. But also it like mentally prepares me for what's about to happen, so I don't get emotionally involved and
right.
do her thing.
Right.
So it's so stupid. But
no, I love that. And yeah. No, I mean, yeah, truly, you're right. As somebody who has a sister, like that totally makes sense. I feel like we have similar language.
Yeah.
Or it's very much like, usually, girl, let me tell you. And then I'm like, what happened? Like, like usually when we get there, it's like, okay, I already know it's about to
I
be
already know we're about to have the
um,
deepest, darkest tea ever.
literally,
Right.
like steeped. It was steeped and it's piping hot, like
Ready for
yeah,
consumption. Oh
ready.
my
This tea is
gosh.
going to burn you. Like usually we'll say something, even something like that. Like I'm about to burn the hell out of you with this tea. Can I please call you? Yeah. So no, that's beautiful. I'm glad that you guys were able to come together and like create that, it's that shared language, right? So you know how to move through things. But yeah, I think it's beautiful, especially in sibling relationships. It's almost like you've
It's
got the built-in person that you're always going to have a relationship with to some extent.
But to your
Um,
knowledge, that is
you
not
have to,
guaranteed. That is not guaranteed. I have two brothers. I love my brothers, but they're just not in my life. And that's not, I mean, that is their choice. It was their choice to leave. It was their choice. When I reach out, it's their choice not to respond. And that's okay. Like, I'm not holding it against them, but like, just because they're your siblings does not guarantee a relationship.
it's true.
Like, my siblings and I went through some weird shit together, and we went through some like deep shit together.
Yeah.
And my sister and I are working through processing it, and we are actively doing that. And my brothers are taking a different route, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
their route doesn't look like ours, and also doesn't involve us.
Yeah.
And that's also okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I think about it in a sense of like, even if you guys are not in like a relationship, like and actually like connected, this is this person who you're always going to be related to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's always this space of like, we could either be more or less connected than we are right now. Because like, I still know you. Like, I know you exist. I know you're still alive.
Yes.
But like how we choose to navigate that is up to us. And so I think about like, there's, like I love both of my siblings so much. Like I'm the youngest. And so these two people are like my idols. Like, like I love both of my siblings. But I don't talk to my brother every day. And it's been a minute since we've actually been able to have a conversation. And it is extremely painful. But it's also like, this is just where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And like, but I do know at the end of the day, like I'm still related to your ass.
Yes.
And I know how to be in contact with you. Like,
yes.
I will, when I see you again, we're going to like, you're still my brother. Like we might not be besties, but you're still my brother. You're still my sister. And it's like, we can work together to figure out like, do we want to be more connected or less connected? And right now I have a perfect example of more connection and a perfect example of less connection. And it's like
the ebb and flow is okay too.
Yeah.
We both grow, or we all grow, because there's four of us, and it's like, there's like, there are times where we like are real tight, and then times when we're not. And when we're together, like it all kind of washes away. But when we're apart, it's like, you know what? You have your life and your family and your wife and your kids, and like you need what you need to make that work.
Right.
And let it work. And when you're ready, I'll be here.
Right. Literally that.
I'm also still here. You know?
Yeah. So, also, like I'll say our siblings really teach us like how to, like if you are lucky enough to grow up with siblings, those are your first real connections to other people, especially if you're close in age. Like this is your socialization. Like, yes, your parents teach you so much about love and how to relate to other people. But like, I think that your siblings teach you more, right? They're more on your level. They're able to really grapple. Like, I know, like we're going to school together and I got this bully, and you go home and you tell your parents and they're like, ignore the bully or stand up for yourself, right? But your siblings at school and knows you're really getting your ass beat and is like, next time I see them, we're going to handle it. Like it's a different kind of relationship. And I feel like for me, especially with my sister being so close in age, like we navigated the world together. Yeah. And like you just learn how to be in those relationships. So yeah, I think about people who didn't grow up with siblings. And because I grew up with them, and again, in the youngest, I'm also the youngest, right, in our grouping of cousins. So in addition to these two siblings, Right, like I'm everybody's baby. And so I've watched everybody grow up. I've watched everybody go through all of these different things and like watch how they relate to one another. The parents, just watching how each of them as adult siblings relate to one another and like all of the complications and components that come with that. It's like I feel like I've just had this honestly like very bird's eye kind of view to a lot of things and just be, can be very objective about a lot of things because it's like I've watched you all grow up actually. So like
And it's cool that you have the baby, like you're the baby because, and you know what I mean, like baby and the baby.
Yeah.
To be the baby because you get to see everybody make the mistakes and you can kind of like judge from afar. You get the bird's eye view. You're allowed to have the bird's eye view. And sometimes, like, and I'm speaking for all my big sisters out there, like if you are a big sister, like you're probably in it, like big sister gets stuck in it and baby gets to watch it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
basically,
here from big sister, from mama sister. At least that's my scenario. And like I see a lot of like big sisters too, like being like mama junior and like having this like interesting dynamic with your younger siblings. But like even my sister's the baby of the family, and she's got a very like balanced, cool, calm, collected way to approach everybody. And like she has like her own, like she's like the family whisperer because like she knows how to talk to everybody because she watched all of us fuck it up,
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I would say the same. Like,
yeah,
I've often been the bridge. I end up being the bridge, and it's like yes, because I've watched you do this, watched you do that. Also, you're on my phone talking about this person. You're on that person, right? So, and it's interesting because like my sister's the oldest daughter, right? My brother is the oldest son or the only boy like in our family, but my brother's also the oldest of all of our cousins, right? And so he's like, like to watch how he has had to be everybody's big brother, not just mine, right? And like my sister, like she's not just my sister, right? Like she raised me, right? Like those kinds of things, but like being able to not have that type of burden. Like I can go just be an artist, free spirit, growing flowers and like doing my thing because it's like
what happen is if your parents are concerned, they're gonna call her and be like, "What's going on with your sister?"
Basically, yeah. And usually, and that's the thing, is like that's where the sibling thing comes into play because she's never gonna spill my business.
Right.
Never.
You gotta know all of it.
Like Amanda's fine. Like, I could literally go be over in Brazil, right? And just be like, yeah, so I'm doing this thing. She'll be like, Amanda's fine.
Yeah.
Like I could just be off doing my own whatever. And my parents might be nervous. And Amanda's fine. Like every person that I date gets introduced to my sister. That is a big deal. Like you meet my sister and her husband, you can meet my parents. They're fine. Like, but you meet my sister and her husband, like that's a big deal. If they are not fucking with you, unfortunately,
neither am I.
Neither am I. I mean, because like again, they were here, and it's also like I'll say too. I feel like I got a bonus sibling, because my sister and her husband have been together since they were 15 and 16, and like my sister and I are pretty close in age. So he's been in my life now longer, more than half my life. So he's also watched me grow up, and there's this whole other thing of like, he's like my like bonus sibling, bonus brother. Like I don't even know, but like. He's someone that I really, really respect. And like when the two of them are together, I think they're an amazing, amazing duo. And like if they're not fucking with you, I'm sorry. They see something that I'm not seeing. And every person that they felt that way about has ended up being a thing. But all the people that they did like, right, were actually incredible people, and we're just not together for other reasons.
Yep, exactly. I love that. I remember the first time Rachel met Labrie, it was an accident. Like my sister and I were going to get a tattoo in Ferndale. We have a lot of sister tattoos, and we were going to get a tattoo in Ferndale. And here comes Labrie biking down the bike lane, and he was wearing like he was wearing like a cutoff denim like Emlay vest,
of course.
And it was like, he was just like the most hipster looking version of himself, like backwards bike cap, like all of this stuff. He's biking down. And I was like, Labrie? And Rachel, like, if you ask her to tell this story, she's like, I've never, ever seen Amanda freak out ever in my life. Like Rachel and I have done a lot of stuff together. We've emceed on stage together. We've sang. We've gone across like overseas together on like solo trips. And she's like, I have never seen Amanda nervous. And like the way she was like, if she tells you the story, she's like, she turned red. She told me to act cool, act cool. And then when he came up, she was just like freaking out. And then apparently after I was like, was I weird? Was I this? And she was like in shock about how I was acting. I blacked out. I don't remember any of this.
Of course you blacked out. Yes, of course you blacked out. Like, oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
It's embarrassing. But then like when he came, so it's funny, when I came over to Christmas at your family's house, in the same date, we went out to dinner in the same date. We both asked each other at the same, like not the same second, but like we both invited each other over to our family's house for the holidays, right?
Okay.
It was kind of like we were both like on the same energetic space. And I was like, do you want to come to like our holiday party at my parents' house? And he was like, I was also going to ask you to Christmas dinner. And so when he came over, it's so funny. We opened it. My dad came with me. We opened the door together. My dad like looks up at him and he goes, wow, you're tall. They had the same hat on. Okay. Adorable. Like same hat, like exact, like this like gray golf hat. And then he comes in, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. And then my sister comes over and she goes, he's like a man, like a grown man. I was like, yeah, girl. She's like, yeah, he's grown up. He's like a grown-up guy. And I was like, yeah, girl. And she was like, I like it. Yeah. I was like, okay, we won. Let's go. Let's do it.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool. I'll say the person that I have the privilege of like sharing like an intimate space with right now, she met my sister by accident. I really wasn't like trying to do that. She was having a garage sale, and I was like headed into the same city to see my sister, and I was like, oh, let we just go to this garage sale, and like she ended up meeting her, but we weren't really like.
Does Clarissa approve?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think what it is like my nephew came, because like I grabbed them and then we went over there, and he was all in. He was like, we're gonna play games. He gave her a hug before we left, and both my sister and I were like, this shy baby is like having this moment. So I mean, we both took that as a good sign, but like at the time we weren't really seeing each other. We had, we were interested, but not really like seeing each other. But now it's a little different. And she'll be here in like a week, and she'll get to meet like my sister for real, and my nephew for real, and my brother-in-law for real. And if you come to the equinox celebration,
send me the details. I want to meet her.
Yeah. This is so good. That's its own thing. And I'm like, okay, Amanda, get off that. Get off that. Let me.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. We are over time, but I love it, and I love you, and I saw it coming because we could talk.
Okay? Right. I was like, this is gonna be an hour and a half. It's not
even mad about it at all. And it was divine timing because we had to reschedule a couple times, but I feel like this was really, really good, and I'm so grateful for you. So I have two final questions.
Yeah.
Question number one: where can people find you, and what do you have coming up next?
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on 3 different platforms right now. You can find me on Instagram. There's 3 Instagrams to follow. I'm gonna say them really quick. The first one is Fennigan's. Yeah. Oh, sweet. Yes. The first one is Fennigan's Farms. That's our design studio. That's our farm. On March 23rd, we'll be having a spring equinox kickoff. If you're a farmer, you know that the spring equinox really matters. So it's like a big ritual day for us to like come out there, wake up the land, get growing. Nothing's being grown in March, though. Let me be very clear. But seedlings are started, all those kinds of things. The next place, also on Instagram, is my personal one. It's called the Amanda Project. And so that will also be down below. And then the last one is Where the Flowers Grow. The L in flowers is a 1, thanks to Instagram. But that's my art page. That's what you'll be able to find, like, any music that I'm putting out, any of my like latest pieces that I'm working on, they'll end up there. And then in addition to that, past Instagram, We do have a website for the farm. It's called fennigansfarms.com, where you can learn a lot more about what we do. The Instagram does not capture it. It just posts our events. And then you can also go to the amandabproject.com to learn a little bit more about me as an individual, the design work that I like to engage in, and my art practice. So yeah, that's where you can find me, and that's what I have coming up.
I love it. Okay, that was like a 2-part to the last question.
Yeah.
The last question is, what's one last piece of advice for our friends?
Get into loving. Get into loving. Open up your heart to love somebody and to be loved. That's your task. One person, you know, and maybe that'll expand, right? I'm open to that. That can expand. But yeah, get into loving. Learn about loving. Study loving. Study what it means to be in community, and to create true bonds with people, not just this like isolated thing. So yeah, look into that. I mean, Bell Hooks has a whole a catalog of things that you can read about that, and there's plenty of other writers who highlight love and loving connection with people all the time. So yeah, get into loving. That's the simple. Yeah, get into it. I think it's a beautiful thing and can benefit you in a lot of ways.
I love you.
I love you too. I'm happy to see you. This is a great way to start the day.
This was so fun. I knew it was going to be fun. So, like, you always drop wisdom every time I connect with you. So I knew that was going to come. But I'm just so grateful for you. I'm thankful for you. I love you. I'm so honored to be in your family because you're like,
I mean, we're honored to have you. Shoot. We're honored to have you.
So
it's been a great decade, you know. Here's to many more.
It's crazy to think that we're at a decade now. But yeah, it was like 9 years ago that I met you.
I mean, when we really get into it, when it's like 30, 40 years, we're going to be like, yeah, remember when we were just, you know, just young in Detroit throwing swaps, and now it's this thing, you know.
I don't know why I have like tobacco pipe in my mouth at that time, but like I do.
Yeah, in my mind, I've lived long enough that like I'm gonna smoke the tobacco probably, you know. Whereas like we've done what we need to do,
like in our rocket chairs,
something
on our compound, like
basically, yeah, because our family compound will be out there.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Oh, I appreciate you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All of you, thank you so much. Please let us know how you're feeling. Let us know if you want to learn more about what Amanda and Fennigan's Farms does. If you have any questions for them, please reach out. They are real people here in Detroit. They already said we have a stand that you could just pull up to. So I want to make sure that you are meeting these amazing people that we work with every single week on the Let's Glow Show. They're real dope humans right here in Metro Detroit that you can just go and love on and be loved by. So please reach out to Amanda and Fennigan's Farms. And then also we have the Revamp Clothing Swap Festival coming up April 26th. This weekend, we are doing our brand ambassador photo shoot. So if you like fashion, if you like sustainability, and you like content making and community, you need to be here. So reach out to me. The applications are closed, but they're not really closed. You just have to put a deadline on things. But you are welcome. So please reach out to me if you're interested in participating. And if you're interested in being on the Let's Glow Show, talking about your business practice and things that you love to do in the community, please reach out. Until then, this is Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother, and I help people get fly, make friends, and save the world through community. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week on the Let's Glow Show. Bye.
Peace.